Hayley Williams, Flowers for Vases. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this new Hayley Williams album. Hayley Williams, you may know her from Paramore, who, over the years I was kind of average on. I liked some albums they put out. Some of them ended up being everything I hated in pop punk. However, last year, Hayley surprised the hell out of me by putting out this album here, Petals for Armor, which ended up becoming one of my favorite albums of the year. It was deeply personal, but it was just a damn good pop record as well. So here we are. We are less than a year out from this great album, and here we are with a new album from Hayley. And going into it, I didn't know what to expect, but when I first heard the singles from it, I was very, very let down. Let's talk about this thing. This album starts off with First Thing to Go, and let's address the elephant in the room right off the bat. This is a much quieter album than Petals for Armor. It's often very somber, very pensive, which to some is going to be just fine. As a matter of fact, this track's a major highlight for me. It's just as deeply personal as her debut album. And her vocals just sound like they're on top of the world. She genuinely sounds here like she's going to crack at any minute, but I mean that in the best way. Love this as an opener. When this is done correctly, it's a really nice, pleasant sound for Hayley. Except we have My Limb, and by now I think you've realized, don't expect nearly anything as pop-oriented as her debut. But once again, for the moment, this is fine. It's well written, it's dramatic, and for the moment, incredibly personal. But I feel like I could say that about a good chunk of this album. It's super meditative. Once again, I love how spacious this track is. Now, I will say this, a lot of my favorite tracks on this album are the ones that come off almost like demo quality, or maybe not demo quality, but sound like Hayley recorded them in one very raw take. And that's certainly on display on Over the Hills. She sounds fantastic here. I love how hypnotic this track comes off. This is all good by me. KYRH or Keep You Right Here may be on the safer side as far as lyrics go. But you know what? I can kind of excuse that here because it shows the quirkier side of Hayley, the more experimental side that we saw on Petals for Armor. It's actually really haunting and super effective. But when this album gets bland, it is incredibly boring and really just slogs along. Systole is honestly like the first track here that I'm not 100% into. I don't mind a lighter track from Hayley, but this sounds like it could crack at any minute. It's just as lyrically punchy. That's not the problem. It's all in the presentation. This just doesn't do it for me. I wish I could enjoy tracks like Trigger. Lyrically, Hayley continues to just deliver one power punch after another. I respect the hell out of her for being so upfront and visual. That's really about it, to be honest. I mean, this track doesn't show a lot of progression. Her vocals are fine, but instrumentally, this is so boring. Good Grief is even more tame and one of the cheesiest tracks here. I mean, instrumentally, it sounds just as deep and sorrowful as the lyrics here, but if you listen to anything on Petals for Armor, you know that Hayley can do a lot more with a lot less. There are great themes on this track. A lot of tracks here, but a lot of them also need sharpening. Wait on the other hand, just sounds really desperate in my view. Once again, lyrically, completely potent. But this just sounds so desperate to be rustic and hip sounding. Like, listening to this, I genuinely feel like Hayley took one look at what Taylor Swift did last year and was like, oh yeah, I can do that. The result is just kind of average. And the rest of the album, yeah, there's a couple of really great moments, but most of this is a real letdown. Like, in Ordinary, oh boy, let me tell you, this might be track of the album. Like, this is a truly awesome ballad. It's so sweet, and lyrically, maybe the most charming track here. Hayley genuinely sounds out of this world on this track. To me, this sounds like a mission statement for this entire album. And being the longest track here, guess what? I worried. But it's not boring, it's completely tear-jerking, and maybe the most brutally honest and emotional track here. I really thought I was going to love HYD. I love how smoky and bluesy this comes off. But it just ends up being really cheap, and that intro is so cheesy, Hayley. You don't need that. And what follows is just super safe and done a lot more effective on other tracks here. And No Use, I Just Do hit me so hard, I had to fight back a tear or two. This track is freaking awesome. What an absolutely masterful ballad. Hayley can pull this off. Like, I think if she made an album that was a little bit more back and forth and not just this track and ballad after ballad, I think I would have appreciated this a little bit more. Find Me Here isn't completely bad, it's just kind of soulless. Like, I just listened to this track again like 20 minutes ago. I don't remember anything about it. It's not terrible, but it definitely sounds like a cover. Descanos is also, a fine interlude. It's also genuinely bizarre. And Just a Lover is my favorite track here. There are parts of it that come off once again as that super raw demo quality, but in the best way. But for the most part, this is just super graceful and sweet. Even just the added bass guitar here and the piano make this just shine out so much. And Hayley's vocals here, beyond the best on the album. These are some of the best I've ever heard from her. So for me, I think overall this was a letdown for me. After what I saw she was doing last year, I was super hyped to hear this, but it is just as deeply personal and lyrically potent and brutally honest as her last album. And there are some serious ballads, but for me, I think just hearing one ballad after another, and, they ran the gauntlet from really good, but also really safe and really bland as well. I don't know. There's certainly a good chunk of material here, but overall, this was a disappointment for me from Hayley, and that makes me sad. I'm feeling a light 6 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.